This episode explores the critical transition from maintaining passive policy documents to implementing active enforcement through a combination of technical controls and administrative oversight. In many professional settings, the gap between what is written in a manual and what actually occurs on the production floor can be quite wide. Typically, a policy that exists only as text on a page offers very little protection against real-world threats or regulatory scrutiny. What this means is that a governance professional must look for ways to weave these rules into the actual fabric of the daily workflow. By moving toward a model of active enforcement, you ensure that your security intentions are translated into consistent, measurable actions across the entire enterprise. Before we continue, a quick note. This audio course is a companion to our course companion books. The first book is about the exam and provides detailed information on how to pass it best. The second book is a Kindle-only ebook that contains 1,000 flashcards that can be used on your mobile device or Kindle. Check them both out at cyber.author.me in the Bare Metal Study Guide series. Policy enforcement is best understood as the systematic process of ensuring that the rules you have written are actually followed by everyone within the organization. It is the bridge between the high-level desires of the board of directors and the granular activities of the individual staff members. In practice, enforcement is what gives a policy its weight and its validity in a legal or regulatory context. Typically, if an organization cannot prove that it actively enforces its own rules, those rules may be dismissed as ineffective by a judge or a government auditor. This process requires a proactive mindset where you are constantly looking for ways to support and verify compliance throughout the organizational structure. A prime example of practical enforcement is the use of technical filters to automatically block unauthorized software from being installed on company computers and mobile devices. Rather than simply asking employees not to install risky applications, the system provides a hard technical barrier that prevents the action from occurring in the first place. In practice, this reduces the burden on the individual user and significantly lowers the risk of malware or unlicensed software entering the environment. Typically, these types of preventative controls are the most efficient form of enforcement because they require very little manual intervention once they are configured. What this means is that the technology is acting as a silent partner in your compliance mission. A common trap for many organizations is the tendency to write extensive policies that they have no actual intention or technical ability to monitor. When you publish a rule that cannot be verified, you are essentially creating a vulnerability that an auditor or a legal opponent can easily exploit. In practice, it is often better to have a smaller set of highly enforceable rules than a massive library of suggestions that are routinely ignored. Typically, a mature program is characterized by a high degree of alignment between what the policy says and what the monitoring tools are actually capable of tracking. What this means is that every sentence in your governance manual should be backed by a clear and reliable method of verification. You can achieve a very effective quick win by implementing automated reminders that notify employees when they need to complete their required annual security and privacy training. Rather than relying on managers to track compliance manually, the system can send escalating notifications and even restrict system access if the training is not finished by the deadline. In practice, this automation ensures that the training remains a priority for the workforce and provides a clear audit trail of the organization's educational efforts. Typically, these reminders reduce the administrative overhead for the security team while significantly increasing the overall completion rates for the entire company. This simple use of technology turns a manual chore into a reliable and automated compliance workflow. Visualize an ideal professional environment where compliance is the default behavior because the technical controls are designed to guide the user toward the correct choice. In such a system, the most secure path is also the easiest path for the employee to take during their normal workday. For example, if a user tries to save a sensitive file to an unencrypted cloud drive, the system might automatically redirect them to a secure, approved location instead. Typically, this type of design reduces the friction that often leads to policy violations and helps to build a positive and resilient security culture. What this means is that you are using engineering principles to support your legal and regulatory requirements. In the field of governance, We use the term detective controls to describe tools like audit logs and monitoring systems that show exactly when a policy was violated. Unlike preventative controls that stop an action, detective controls provide the evidence needed to investigate an incident and hold individuals accountable after the fact. In practice, these logs are essential for reconstructing the timeline of a data breach or proving to a regulator that your oversight mechanisms are working correctly. Typically, a robust enforcement strategy uses a mix of both preventative and detective controls to create a defense-in-depth posture. What this means is that you are always maintaining visibility into the activities occurring within your digital boundaries. Reviewing your enforcement mechanisms on a regular basis helps you find potential gaps where human behavior might bypass your original security and legal intentions. Even the best technical controls can sometimes be circumvented by a creative employee or a change in the technical architecture of the business. In practice, this review involves looking at your exception logs and interviewing staff to understand where the current rules might be causing too much friction. Typically, this feedback allows you to refine your controls so they remain effective without being overly burdensome to the workforce. This continuous improvement process ensures that your enforcement efforts stay aligned with the evolving needs of the modern organization. Think about a challenging scenario where a high-level manager tries to ignore a security policy for the sake of convenience, but the system prevents the action. This situation demonstrates the true power of automated enforcement, as the technical control applies the same rules to everyone regardless of their job title or authority. In practice, this consistency is what builds trust in the governance program and ensures that the organization remains protected even against internal pressure. Typically, when the system says no to an unauthorized action, it reinforces the idea that the rules are mandatory and non-negotiable. What this means is that your technical configuration serves as an impartial referee for the organization's security and legal standards. You can anchor your entire mindset in the fundamental fact that policies are only truly effective if there are clearly defined and consistently applied consequences for noncompliance. Without the possibility of disciplinary action or a loss of privileges, a policy is effectively a suggestion that can be ignored whenever it becomes inconvenient. In practice, this requires a close partnership with human resources, HR, to ensure that the consequences are fair, legal, and well communicated to the entire staff. Typically, a culture of accountability is built when employees see that the organization is willing to enforce its rules even when it is difficult. What this means is that enforcement is the final, essential step in the life cycle of any professional governance program. We have explored several ways to combine technical tools with administrative oversight to create a robust and defensible enforcement strategy for your organization. By moving away from passive documentation and toward active verification, you are building a program that can withstand both technical attacks and legal challenges. Typically, the most successful organizations are those that view enforcement not as a punishment, but as a necessary service that protects everyone's interests. What this means is that your role is to facilitate a safe and compliant environment where the organization can thrive and grow. This integrated approach to governance is what creates lasting value for the business and its stakeholders. A practical technique for maintaining oversight is the use of periodic spot checks to verify that manual processes are being handled according to your documented rules. While automation is preferred, many high-level business tasks still require human judgment and manual steps that cannot be fully automated. In practice, a spot check involves selecting a random sample of recently completed tasks and reviewing the documentation to ensure every step was followed correctly. Typically, the knowledge that these checks occur serves as a powerful incentive for employees to maintain high standards in their daily work. This administrative control provides an extra layer of assurance that your policies are being respected even in the most complex manual workflows. Strong and visible enforcement protects the organization by proving to regulators and external partners that your policies are significantly more than just paperwork. When an auditor sees that you have a history of identifying and correcting policy violations, they gain confidence in the overall integrity of your compliance program. In practice, this can lead to shorter audits, lower insurance premiums, and a much better reputation in the marketplace for security and trust. Typically, The evidence of active enforcement is what turns a generic compliance manual into a powerful legal defense for the company. What this means is that the energy you spend on enforcement today is a direct investment in the long-term resilience of the organization. You have now finished this unit on strengthening policy enforcement, which completes a major phase of your journey through the foundations of professional governance. We have discussed the value of technical filters, the role of detective controls, and the necessity of maintaining a culture of accountability and oversight. A warm and very practical next step for your own development is to take a moment and verify at least one technical control in your office today. For example, you might check if your screen automatically locks after a period of inactivity, or if you are required to use a second factor when logging into a sensitive system. Moving forward with this observant mindset will help you see the real-world impact of the governance principles we have explored.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit BareMetalCyber.com.